Welcome to Mathew, Your Kingdom Come. I'm Tracy Hill, and today I'd like to share a brief introduction to the study. Inspired by a love for Jesus and for the Bible, I've written this study to help guide you through the Gospel of Matthew. And this study covers the life of Jesus. I pray that as you go through this study, you gain a greater understanding of who Jesus is, what he teaches, the power that he has, and how much he loves you. And as a result of all that you're learning, you feel a lot more hope, joy, confidence, and peace. I have a little plaque next to the side of my bed on my nightstand, and it quotes Psalm 4:8. It reads, "I will lie down and sleep in peace, O Lord, for you alone make me dwell in safety. No other thing or person gives us the safety and security that God does. When the world seems to be in chaos, as it often does, God is still in complete control, reigning from his heavenly throne." From cover to cover, the Bible reveals just that. From our point of view, the world seems to be on an uncertain path with no clear direction. But the Bible tells us that God has had a purpose for us since before creation. His purpose has always been to draw us into a relationship with him. The best part of the Bible and the best part of history is when Jesus comes to earth, revealing God's purpose and his love to us. Despite a 400-year period between the Old Testament and the New Testament, God did not miss a beat. The Old Testament closed with the prophet Malachi promising a redeemer, and the New Testament opens with Jesus, our Redeemer, arriving on the scene. God's plan always prevails, and his promises to us are always certain. So I just want to go through the workbook with you real quick and give you an overview of what to expect. The workbook opens with the story of the first Christmas, and it closes with the story of the first Easter. It's just a beautiful picture because it begins and it ends with Jesus, and it shows that he is the fulfillment of all of God's promises to us. So the workbook opens, there are some intro pages at the beginning of the study. There's a foreword which describes my just the inspiration behind my desire to write the study. And then there's a page that talks about the significance of the cover photo and the meaning behind the picture that I took from Jerusalem. And then the next page is an introduction. It gets us up to the point. It bridges the gap between the old and the new, and it gets us ready for Jesus's arrival on the scene. There's a page that has Bible timeline highlights, so you can see where the life and the story of Jesus falls within the timeline of the entire Bible. And then there's a page that has messianic prophecies that lists all these prophecies that Jesus fulfilled. They were foretold in the Old Testament, and hundreds and sometimes even thousands of years later, Jesus fulfilled them through his birth, through his life, through his teachings, through his death, and through his resurrection. So those are the introduction pages, and I encourage you not to skip over those, but to read those first so that they prepare you and just kind of prepare the scene for everything that's to follow throughout the rest of the study. So lesson 1 is titled The Newborn King. It focuses on Jesus's lineage. It includes Abraham and King David, and also has us look at the lives of 4 women who have scandalous pasts, but they are known and remembered for their amazing faith. We get to look at Jesus's miraculous birth. We meet Joseph and Mary and the angels and the shepherds and the wise men. That is just such a fun chapter because who doesn't love Christmas? And this focuses Christmas on the true meaning, which is Jesus's birth. So lesson 2 is called The Kingdom at Hand. And in this chapter, we're introduced to John the Baptist. We get to witness Jesus's baptism, see his temptation in the desert, and be there when his ministry begins. And we see the calling of his first 4 disciples. In this chapter, we're also introduced to the hypocritical religious leaders, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they're going to play a huge part throughout the Gospel of Matthew. Lesson 3 is titled The Kingdom Teachings, and this this lesson covers the whole Sermon on the Mount, otherwise known as the Beatitude. It talks about what Jesus' kingdom is like and how humility plays a role in our entrance into his kingdom. This chapter talks about what Jesus expects of his followers, what kind of behavior we are to have towards others, what kind of worship he desires from us. Jesus focuses a lot on the condition of our hearts. He touches on many various topics, and we learn about the importance of prayer in this chapter as well. It's a big chapter covering a lot of things, but the main point is God desires our heart, and he also showers us with grace. So lesson 4 is called Miraculous Proofs. This lesson focuses on the countless miracles that give evidence to Jesus's authority to teach on the kingdom of heaven. In this chapter, we see Jesus heal physically, emotionally, and spiritually. He forgives sins and restores people to life. Jesus calms the storm, and he meets Matthew and invites Matthew to follow along. And then he has dinner with Matthew and a group of sinners. So lesson 5 is titled Responsibilities and Reactions. It's an introduction to all 12 disciples who are called apostles, and we'll see the difference between apostles and disciples. We get to hear the instructions that they are given for ministry. We hear the warning of persecution that Christians will face for their faith. And we'll see that there are even just going to be, for Christians, disagreements and difficulties, even within our own families. In this lesson, we see various reactions to Jesus and growing opposition from the religious leaders. Lesson 6 is called Parables and Purity. Parables are stories that help us better understand a spiritual concept with the use of a tangible example, something that occurs in our everyday life. Jesus uses these to explain a heavenly teaching. He uses many parables to teach on the kingdom of heaven and how priceless it is. In this chapter, he walks on water. He feeds thousands of people with only a few fish and a couple loaves of bread, and he does this twice. And he also teaches in this lesson on inner purity and great faith. Lesson 7 is titled, He is the Christ. In this lesson, we will be asked the question of who we think Jesus is. We will be warned to be on guard against false teachings that are contrary to the Bible. We will see Jesus transfigured in glory on the mountaintop. We will learn that faith can move mountains. We will hear Jesus predict his death. And we will be taught the severity of sin and how important it is to avoid it. We'll see the value that Jesus places on children and hear a parable on the importance of forgiveness. Matthew is jam-packed with just amazing teachings and miracles of Jesus. Lesson 8 is titled The Royal Entrance. Jesus enters Jerusalem on the colt of a donkey on the very first Palm Sunday in this lesson. He clears the temple courts and rebukes people for turning God's house into a place of profit. He teaches more parables and gives us the 2 greatest commandments. Love the Lord, number 1, and love each other, number 2. He says, woe to the hypocrites, and he weeps over Jerusalem as this lesson closes. Lesson 9 says, keep watch. Jesus promises that someday he will return and set up his heavenly kingdom here on earth. He gives us and his disciples a warning to keep watch, because no one knows when Jesus is coming back, but there will be many signs of the times and many events that he tells us about that will precede his return. This chapter is all about end times and what we can expect as the time draws closer. And Jesus tells us these things not to scare us, but to prepare us. And the most important thing to remember as you do this chapter is that Jesus is coming back, and when he does, he will make all things perfect. Lesson 10, which is our last lesson in the study, is titled, He is Risen. So this lesson is all about the story of the first Good Friday and the first Easter. We'll cover the Last Supper, Jesus' time of prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane, his trials and condemnation, his death on the cross on Friday afternoon, and his resurrection from the grave on Sunday morning. And finally, we'll hear and receive Jesus's words on our Great Commission to share the good news of salvation. So as you can see, the book of Matthew is just overflowing with good information that isn't just meant to settle in our minds, but it's also meant to move to our hearts and transform our lives. So throughout this study, you're just going to need your Bible and the workbook to follow along. And I want to let you know that even though we're studying the book of Matthew, you will be jumping around in the Bible, looking up verses from the Old Testament and all around the New Testament. So to help familiarize yourself and not get lost, just remember the table of contents at the beginning of the Bible is your friend. It's there for a reason. No matter how long you've been studying the Bible, it still comes in handy. It's finding especially some of those minor prophets that get lost in the mix. So don't be embarrassed. Just use that table of contents to your benefit. So now it is time to jump into lesson 1, the newborn king. And as you go through the lesson, I hope you enjoy learning about Jesus's ancestry. It's really quite interesting. And I hope you enjoy studying the story of his miraculous birth, and it just brings extra special meaning to Christmas for you, and that you can tuck Christmas in your heart and carry it with you every day. So now we are on to chapter 1, the newborn king, and that's what the next video, I will sum up that teaching. So have a great week, and God bless you. Okay, bye.